Okay, so it's 6:34 p.m. My debate's at 8:34 p.m. Central Time, and I'm just going to run through this uh as a debate prep. The other thing that I did before to get my timing and all that, the other thing I did before this, I also took notes. I've watched my previous debate with Scott Clem on this particular topic multiple times. I watched Adam's debate with Phelan multiple times, even though I don't think it's going to go in that direction because Phelan has distinct views on certain things that are different from me. But anyway, let's go. So I think this is my 36th debate. I'll count that later on. We got the yellow right here that represents the eschatology debate. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've had five of in this particular area. Now, I tell people that when it comes to free grace, I feel like Jordan in the 23 playing basketball. But when I'm dealing with eschatology, I'm like Jordan playing, this is AI Jordan playing baseball. I'm just trying to stay in the game. And so what's interesting is that I debated Scott Clem, and then the very next day, Adam debated Phelan. And so, it's possible he saw my debate and that may have helped him in his prep. But regardless of that, he knows what angle I'm coming at because I told him that I'm going to focus on the binding of Satan in this particular debate. So this is what I say because the title of the debate is "What does the Bible teach about the millennium?" Well, the Bible teaches many things about the millennium. The millennium teaches that Satan will be bound during that time, Revelation 20. Therefore, he's not bound now. Adam will take the position that Satan was bound at the cross. This position is full of contradiction and is not more biblical than my position. I would say that there are 7 problems or contradictions in amillennialism. One, the problem of command that I'll illustrate from a story about Saddam Hussein as it relates to Ephesians 6. 2, the problem of no influence, which I'll relate to from Revelation 9. 3, the problem of restricted realms of having no influence. 4, the problem of contradicting how God judges Satan. 5, the problem of Satan's fluctuation in influence, intensity, and history. And 6, the problem of contradictions in Revelation 12 compared to 20. 7, the problem of cause and effect between Revelation 19 and 20. So the cause is the return of Christ, and the effect is the defeat and binding of the unholy trinity, the Antichrist, the false prophet, and Satan. So Revelation 20 is not a rehashing of events prior to the second coming. As you listen to this debate, ask yourself which view is more biblical. Is Satan bound right now? Or did someone smuggle him a cell phone so that he could control his demons right now, so he could give orders, like Suge Knight. I don't even know if Diddy got a phone. But regardless of that, or will he have no influence when he's bound? I'm going to take the position that he has no influence. If he has no influence while bound, then premillennial is more biblical. This is what the debate is about. My opponent must show that Satan is bound. So here we go. The problem of command, Saddam Hussein. So this is when Saddam Hussein was captured and he was in a spider hole, okay? Perhaps he was in control. Maybe he had a walkie-talkie and all that stuff. I think the main thing is that he was not in control. Regardless of all that, they were all operating on their own. But I won't go into all of that. This is just an illustration, so I'm probably talking too much about it. But the point is that in Ephesians 6, when it's talking about spiritual warfare, it describes principalities, powers, spiritual wickedness in high places. And so what we're talking about here is a command hierarchy. And if Satan is bound now, then who's giving these demons commands? How are they so organized if their main leader is bound? So that's the problem of command. The second problem is the problem of no influence until release. We see this because in Revelations 9, we see that it's whenever the angel allows the locust, demonic locust, out of the pit, that power is given to them. You can see that in green right there. The green, they're let out, and the blue, the power is given to them. Well, in Revelation 20, an angel binds him, and then look in blue, so that he would not deceive the nations any longer. So he doesn't have any influence, just as the locusts didn't have any influence until they were let out. Then we have the third problem, the problem of restricted realms, no influence. And so this is the idea here. You have Satan is banished from heaven, and this ends his influence in heaven. Then he's banished from the earth, which ends his influence on the earth. And then when he's released from the abyss, this begins his influence on the earth. And then whenever he's banished from the earth, finally, this ends his influence forever. So the point is that when he's banished from a particular realm, he no longer has influence in that realm. When he's on earth, he doesn't have influence in heaven. That seems to be the argument here. 4, the other thing is the problem of contradicting how God judges Satan. See, this is running Satan through the chart, and it's an oversimplification, but I think it works. You got penalty, power, and presence. These words are typically used when talking about our sin. You know, we've been saved from the penalty of sin. We're being saved by the power of sin. And one day we'll be saved from the presence of sin. Well, this can work for Satan as well, because the judgment was pronounced. It was judged at the cross. According to John 16:11, it says the ruler of this earth is judged. The power, though, Satan, it's sort of like he's got a stay of execution, because you have a restrainer in place by God, regardless of who that specific restrainer is. And that restrainer, in my view at least, will be removed during the tribulation. But regardless of that, moment by moment, we're able to overcome Satan and the flesh and the world through the power of the Holy Spirit. But one day, Satan is going to be bound. And when that occurs, that's when his sentence begins. He's going to have no influence, all right? He's going to be totally restrained. He's not going to be smuggled a cell phone to try to control anything. Now, in my Clem debate, I use this chart here. I'm going to give you a new variation of it, but this deals with the problem of Satan's fluctuation of influence and anticipation in history. Okay, because you got the unfallen, you got how the fallen Satan operates through time, and then bound forever. Those are the three main divisions. Okay. Well, what I did was I took the Homeland Security colors that probably most Americans are used to, and I ran them through the chart. So you got the same three divisions with the bold black lines, but then also you have from the Garden of Eden up to the time of Jesus, and then you have from the after Jesus the cross, you have the apostles and prophets, and then you have 100 AD up to the present time, and then you have the tribulation, and then you have the what I would call the 1,000-year reign, and then you have that's when Satan is bound, and then you have the rebellion at the end, and then finally the eternal state, which is not on the map. The point is regardless if you agree with the temporal distinctions here and the dividing up in time and all that, the narrative, the plot line of the story is showing fluctuation in intensity. Based on all the data that's in scripture, we shouldn't be seeing this, you know, if all millennialism was true, because there's not a uniformity in experience. Instead, what we see is that Satan was operating at a 6 before the cross. And then he was operating at a 9 at Jesus with all the demons and all those things coming on. With the apostles and prophets, they were able to do certain things, but if we're going to recognize that Satan was judged at the cross, but not sentenced yet, then we got to bring that down to an 8. So I would say from the first century forward, we've been at a blue level, a 6 right now. But in the tribulation, in my view, we're to a 10. Okay, now check this out. This is the whole point. In the kingdom, the influence drops to a zero because he's abound and has no influence. Okay. But then when he's let out and he causes the final rebellion, it's severe. It's at number 10. And see, the thing is that Adam agrees with me about that final rebellion. He agrees it's severe. The problem is that he thinks that there's, well, he can't compensate for this. So I'm not going to go into what he thinks. I think it's clear right here that you should not have this fluctuation if amillennialism is true. It doesn't make sense. All right, number 6, the problem of contradictions in Revelation 12 compared to 20. Now, amillennialists a lot of times will pride themselves on making comparisons between Revelation 12 and Revelation 20 and saying the similarities, but the differences are really what gets you. So we can look at, like, you can see the highlighted words about in heaven, waging war, the mention of the dragon. You see the word, but you see in Revelation 12, Satan who deceives the whole world. But you see in Revelation 20 that he was bound so that he doesn't deceive. Okay. So in Revelation 12, he's thrown down to the earth and the angels are thrown down with them. But in Revelation 20, he's put into the abyss, not the earth, and he's not with the angels. There's no angels mentioned there. And then you have the phrase short time. In 12, it says, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, for Satan comes down with great wrath, knowing that he only has a short time. That refers to his time during the tribulation. But in Revelation 20, what you have is a long period of time, the 1,000 years, and then he's released for a short time in the rebellion. So you see the contradictions here? And here's how it all maps up right here. Basically, what you see is they both begin with a heavenly scene. You have an angelic battle, right? But you have the realm. One is the cast from heaven to earth, and the other is from earth to the abyss. Now, the thing is about the access. Satan no longer has access to heaven because he's confined to the earth. This goes back to the argument that we talked about earlier about the problem of the realms. But whenever in 23, Satan no longer has access to the earth because he's confined to the abyss. And then, like I mentioned already, that Satan is alone mentioned there. In Revelation 12, what happens is that there's an increased deception when Satan's cast to the earth. But in Revelation 20, the deception stops for the nation because Satan is bound. And I already explained this short time. So number 7, the problem of cause and effect between Revelation 19 and 20. So the thing to understand is that Revelation 19 and 20 work together. They're cohesive. The chapter division shouldn't divide there in verse 1. Okay. So what you can look here, you can look at, you see I got a color coding here for a yellow movement, a green, a judgment is green, and then you got worshiping is blue, and deceive is pink, and then rest is red. So what you look what you see here, guys. I'm going to go with the yellow first. So in Revelation 19, the armies which are in heaven. Then in 17, it goes to mid-heaven. Then 19, earth. Okay, then we go to 20 on the other side, and we see we're in the abyss. That's a downward spiral link there. Now let's go to the green, the judgment link. We see the beast was seized, and with them the false prophet. But then when we look at Revelation 20, it's the devil and Satan. So these are all three enemies being judged as a result of Christ's second coming. It's the effect. Then we have the worshiping link. We see down there, it's talking about mark of the beast and those who worship his image in verse 20. And then we see in verse 4, Revelation 20, it's talking about those who had not worshiped the beast. And then we see the rest link in 21, and the rest were killed with the sword. Okay. But in 5, the rest of the dead did not come to life. So there's a connection here, cohesiveness, how all this sticks together and plays with each other. And so therefore it shouldn't be isolated. It's not a retelling of the story, and it wouldn't make sense because you would be going back to the time before the second coming, and it would just break the whole flow. All right. So the thing is that Adam's amillennialism has failed to show that Satan is bound. His position does not account for these biblical passages such as Ephesians 6 with all the ordering, Revelation 9 where the influences occurs whenever the locusts are there, as well as 12, the contradictions whenever it's compared to 20, plus others. His position contradicts and has many problems. Why? Because Satan still commands demons. 2, Satan still has influence. 3, Satan gets restricted. 4, Satan gets judged in at least 3 phases. 5, Satan's intensity level is not the same. 6, Satan's influence in Revelation 12 is not the same as 23. And 7, Satan being bound is the result of the second coming, so it violates the cause and effect if it's not sequential. All right, so now after I did that, I'm going to pause this real quick. I got to use the restroom. Okay, now this portion was stuff I had written prior to the most recent organization and tightening up. I'm still going to mention it because I want to coat my mind with it, inculcate my mind with it. And some of it I may still use and cut, but of course I got to check for timing. But I'm going to let it flow like this. I believe Satan is not yet bound. Adam believes Satan is bound because demonic activity has decreased. Does he believe Satan's influence was at a 9 before the cross? He doesn't believe that it dropped to a 0 after the cross, yet the incarceration imagery shows Satan has no influence. I would put Satan's influence at an 8 during the 1st century. That's when there was apostles and prophets. From AD 100, I will put Satan's influence at a 7 because no overt possessions. Not going to those stories, that people claim. In the tribulation, I will put Satan's influence at a 10. In the millennium, Satan's influence is 0. The flesh and the world remain enemies. So the chart kind of explained a lot of that. So that's kind of redundant. When Satan is released, he has a 10 level of influence and rebellion. If Adam's Amill is correct, we would expect a uniform testimony in scripture and an experience. How does Adam explain these fluctuations in intensity of experience? It should be 0 influence except for his special pleading. He claims Satan is bound from authority to deceive the nations. Satan is currently using demons and will use them in the future. But if Satan is bound, then how can he have authority to the beasts and the false prophet who deceive the nations or give authority? Adam believes demonic activity currently occurs and maybe exorcisms as well. But where do the demons get their authority and power? If they're organized, then who are they taking orders from? Ephesians 6. So where Adam wants to focus on when Christ will return, the real debate is when is Satan bound? At the cross or in the future? What would the world look like if Satan is bound? Would it look like this or something better? We do not need to get into the details about the millennial world. That could be done in future debates. I will show his arguments and explanations are insufficient and that they're inferior in explanatory power to the premillennial position. I expect him to again attempt to argue that 1, numbers are symbolic for a long period of time, but that's not the focus of the debate. 2, there are not multiple comings of Christ. That's not the focus of the debate. That was stuff that came up in the filling thing. His reasons for Amill, which I'll address if I have time. Revelation 20 is an encouraging passage for the premillennial position because it's the result of the return of Christ in Revelation 19, so that all 3 members of the unholy Trinity are bound. But the amillennial view of Revelation 20 is not encouraging if it's a contradiction. The law of non-contradiction says A and non-A can't be true and false at the same time in the same sense. Is Satan loose to deceive the nations in Revelation 12 or bound in Revelation 20 to not deceive them? To escape contradiction, you must say it's a different sense. And then I mentioned Matthew Weymar basically talking about can't do damage in the abyss. Henderson's millennialist talks about him Satan being a dog on a chain. Cox saying log chain. Those are quotes from Weymar. Adam claims that the first resurrection is Christ and that it signals the reign and defeat of Satan. But they're not the same thing. This debate is not about whether Christ is reigning now. I don't believe he's currently reigning on the throne of David. The debate is about when Satan is bound, at the cross or in the future. Adam assumes that Satan is bound because he was defeated at the cross. But a judgment can be separate from the sentencing phase. Satan's actual sentence will not begin into the future. We can all speak of different aspects of Satan's judgment, just as we speak of different aspects of salvation in relation to sin. Run it through the chart, which we already did. Adam gave a few passages, Genesis 3:15, but it doesn't talk about the cross. Instead, it explains the crusher of the serpent. And I think Daniel 2 is where the mountain crushes the statue. That's where the time of the Gentiles comes to the end when Christ's theocracy is established. The time of the Gentiles and the theocracy of Israel can't be going on at the same time. Mark 3:27 does not say when the strong man is bound. We need to look at this in the meaning and context. 1 John 3:8 does not say when Satan's works are destroyed. What about Hebrews? There's passages in there to talk about that. We don't see all things underneath his feet, that type of thing. Why can't this happen in phases? Isn't the amillennial view I don't know why I need to scratch that. That doesn't make sense, I don't think. Your view of the binding of Satan is a contradiction. Your view of the reigning of Christ is begging the question. You are assuming that Christ's reign began at the cross and then assuming that's when Satan was bound. Yet none of your passages show Satan is bound. You claim three things will occur at Christ's coming. You do not believe in I'm not sure if he does or not. I don't know if he believes in the bodily resurrection, return of Christ. I need to understand that. Yet you claim that angels return bodily and visibly. You claim that angels gather, resurrect the righteous and the wicked, and you claim the resurrection is to the great white throne judgment. Seems like he holds to a general judgment theory. Two, you talk about the martyrs reigning with Christ. Thrones would last a long time. That's what you say there. And then about the assurance of the saints argument you make. But the problem with that is it's not an assurance that there's a contradiction, as I said. Now, for the symbolic argument, 1,000 you say is symbolically for a long time. In your debate with Phelan, you gave 12 passages, but you only read 4. Some of those passages are poetic passages from wisdom literature, and some are from prophecy, which can also use poetry. Some are from historical narrative, which include prophecy and poetry. None necessarily support his claim that 1,000 is symbolic of Revelation 20. Why don't you believe in the bodily return of Christ? Why don't you believe in multiple comings, phase 1? Anyway, those are just questions that I was. So there's the passages that he brought up in his debate, and I just kind of picked a couple brief answers, just possibilities, just based off a genre, without even going into the context of them. First, about the number thing, this is something I wrote last night. There are only two main approaches to hermeneutics: the literal system or the allegorical system of interpretation. We both claim to use the literal system of interpretation. Well, the literal system includes two aspects: direct literal and indirect literal. Direct literal is contractual language and more directly in your face. Indirect literal is using figures of speech, picturesque language and stuff. Here's the thing: even symbols are interpreted by a literal system. The object, which is the symbol, the referent, which the symbol refers to, and the meaning, the resemblance between the symbol and the referent. These principles are from Zuck's Basic Bible Interpretation, still a standard at Dallas Theological Seminary for hermeneutics. Symbols have their base in reality. That's what we got to understand. They point to something. So one must determine the meaning or resemblance, if any, is explicitly assigned by the text to the referent. If the verse does not give the meaning or resemblance of the symbol, then check other passages, check the nature of the symbol, and check which major characteristics the referent and the object have in common. Be careful not to assign the wrong characteristics of the symbol to the referent. Look for the one major point of resemblance. Realize that one referent may be depicted by several objects. In prophetic literature, do not assume that because a prophecy contains some symbols, everything else in the prophecy is symbolic. In prophetic literature, do not make it to a symbol, descriptions of the future that are possible or plausible. And also, numbers can have a symbolic connotation associated with them, but that doesn't make the number symbolic itself. Like the number 40 means 40, but it has a lot of connotations to it. And that's that for that slide. Now, I do have another slide, another debate deck, which I've cut a lot of stuff that I showed in my other debate. I just don't have the time to give all my resources and everything. But let me see if there's anything I want to mention here. Something down here. I want to go over the symbol stuff. Let's see. Is it this? No, these are all outlines. All right. Yeah, I'll be able to do a lot more on the next debate. All right. right. Let's see here. That's not even related to this. Uh, okay. All right. Well, what did I put it? Where did I put the symbolic thing about the numbers? Uh-oh. I'm surely didn't delete it. Um, oh, binding of Satan. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's the numbers. Check this out. I said this in the first one, but I just want y'all to get this through your head. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Sullivan wrote this on Revelation. The book of Revelation is not a symbolic book. There are 174 cardinal numbers of Revelation that deals with cardinal numbers deal with quantity. 19 numbers are fractions, one third, or cardinal numbers with fractions, three and a half. 61 are ordinal numbers, like first, second. So this means that there's 254 numbers in Revelation. That's a good statistic to write down. Okay. He says there's four general categories for numbers of scripture: conventional, which are mathematical value; rhetorical, which deal with intensity, such as few, many; symbolic, and mystical. Revelation 13:18 is the only possible one. All are conventional in Revelation except for 13. So he narrows it down to 13. Then watch what he says. 12 of the 13 are classified as rhetorical and idiomatic usages. Right, Revelation 5:11, a large indefinite number of angels, expression from Daniel 7:10. See Robert Thomas. The most idiomatic is the number one, conventional, indefinite, uniform, single, suddenness or abruptness, a very short time. The only difficulty is Revelation 13:8. It's not conventional. When a number is used with a year, it refers to a literal year. So literal year, okay? Time, because there's time indicators in the text. Second Peter 3:8 focuses on God's transcendence, how God views time. So he uses literal time there. John uses large indefinite numbers and short amounts of time in Revelation 20, but he does not use numbers to do this. So indefinite and okay. And then 23, Satan must be released after 1,000 years for a short time. 20 verse 8, Satan gathers an army like the sands of the seashore. The contrast, 1,000 said six times. And so the cardinal numbers are your conventional numbers. So there's no reason to doubt that 1,000 means a thousand. As I've said before, even the dope dealer knows what 6 kilos is. And that's how many times kilos is repeated. So anyway, I got to get this uploaded because the debate's going to start in an hour and 30 minutes. And so that means by the time this finishes airing, it'll be almost time for the debate. God bless, guys.